Welcome back to SportsLine, everybody. So much going on as winter turns to spring. NFL Draft right around the corner. Final Four coming up this weekend. You can watch that on News Channel 5. The championship game will be on Monday on News Channel 5. And, of course, the Final Four itself will be Saturday on News Channel 5. As you said, the NFL Draft right around the corner. The NHL playoffs getting ready to start with the Predators. NBA playoffs getting ready to start, hopefully with the Memphis Grizzlies. So much going on, and there's only one person who can break it all down for us. She's still basking in the glow of her beloved Cubbies winning the World Series. It's our good friend from the Associated Press, Teresa Walker. T, how are you tonight?
I am good. John, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great. So great to have you on. All right, you were in Memphis for the Memphis Regional, and we had a classic game between North Carolina and Kentucky for the right to go to the Final Four. We all know what happened. Kentucky hitting a shot pretty much at the buzzer. I'm sorry, North Carolina hitting a shot pretty much at the buzzer. And now we've got some Kentucky fans that are a little upset at the referee in that game, and he's been getting some death threats and had to go to the authorities. I'm looking in the camera right at you, Kentucky fans. Stop it. You need to get over yourself. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I don't know about you, T, but when I hear stories about that, it really takes the shine off what was a great classic big-time college basketball game between two big-time powers, two Hall of Fame coaches, and two legendary programs. It's just, look, we're all fans. You know, you're a big Cubs fan. I'm from New York. I'm a big Giants and Yankees fan, and we still get emotional about our teams. But, you know, sometimes your team just loses. You know, and yeah, some calls don't go your way. I was disappointed to hear what these Kentucky fans have been doing. I don't know about you.
Well, it's sad, and unfortunately, fan is short for fanatic. And,
right.
You know, in this day and age of social media and the internet, it's so easy to track somebody down. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. You know, I thought a foul should have been called at the end of the first half when I think it was Fox drove the lane and, you know, obviously got fouled, but there was no call. Well, guess what? If the Kentucky Wildcats, they had a lead. They made a nice run, pushed the lead up to I think 5. But couldn't hold it. You know, they just could not stop North Carolina when North Carolina finished the game on a 16-9 run. You know, it was amazing, that flurry of threes. You know, first Aaron Fox hits one, and then Monk hits not just one but two. You know, when you hit that three with 7.2 seconds left, you know, it's like, okay, we're headed to overtime. But and here's the funny thing, John. I had asked John Calipari the day before about his philosophy on timeouts, and he said usually he likes to let his team play unless he thinks they're going to lose. And he said after that game on Sunday night in Memphis that he was trying to get a timeout. He was trying to get a timeout, but boy, North Carolina got that ball in fast as a son of a bee, as he put it. Well, guess what? That's part of the game. You know, the Tar Heels, you know, Roy Williams said that that's something. Shockingly enough, you lose on a last-second shot a year ago in the national title game.
Right.
North Carolina has practiced 15-second shot clocks, end-of-game situations a bunch. And one of the things you do is you don't let the other team get set up on D. You push the tempo, and you go down and get yourself a good shot, and that's exactly what happened. So, you know, you don't want to – you're upset? Sure. Guess what? There were a lot of things that went into that game, and John Higgins as a referee wasn't the problem for the Kentucky Wildcats. They couldn't handle North Carolina's defensive zone switch late in the game, and by the time they finally figured it out, it was too late.
So, all right, so we've got North Carolina, South Carolina, Oregon, and Gonzaga in the Final Four. Maybe not a lot of buzz about this year's Final Four, but still some excitement nonetheless. You've got the first-time programs in there, Gonzaga and South Carolina. You got Oregon, that hasn't been there since 1939, and then old reliable North Carolina making their 20th Final Four appearance. Obviously, the Tar Heels would appear to be the favorite, but I look at a team like Gonzaga and everything they've fought through, not only this year, but ever since 1999 when they became one of the darlings of the tournament. Mark Few finally gets this team to the Final Four. He finally gets them to that holy grail. Curious to know from your perspective, do the Zags have enough to win 2 more games and cut down the nets next Monday?
Well, I think they do, but let's not ignore Oregon.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the odds. I think the odds favoring North Carolina in that game have decreased just a teeny since they first came out Sunday night. Let's not forget, you know, Oregon. Even though they lost that player at the end of the a couple weeks ago, they've been playing pretty well as well. So I think it's going to be interesting. And plus, being there in Glendale, Arizona, it's going to be a lot easier for Oregon and Gonzaga fans to make their way down there than maybe for Gamecock fans, who this is their first Final Four. So it should be interesting. I know it's not the matchups that anyone picked or expected, at least 3 of the 4 teams, I think. But, there's a reason they play them, and I'm not ready to see that it's the Tar Heels title to win, even though the last time they won a regional final in Memphis was in 2009. It's also the year that North Carolina last won its last national championship.
Teresa Walker from the Associated Press, good friend of the program, is joining us here on SportsLine. One more note about the Final Four. South Carolina, I mean, you talk about one of the feel-good stories of this year's NCAA tournament. I've always been a fan of Frank Martin. I don't know if I could play for him, but obviously his players can. Thornwell's an outstanding player, SEC Player of the Year. And you look at South Carolina, they really are a reflection of their coach, right? They are a tough, gritty, hard-nosed team, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. And, let's not forget, this run that they've gone on just started, in this NCAA tournament. They didn't impress too many people at the SEC tournament, and they kind of slid their way into the postseason, finishing up the regular season. So, yeah, they put things together absolutely at the perfect time for them and making some history for a program that, it's been a few decades since they last won an NCAA tournament game. So, really nice to see them do it. And hey, let's put it this way. The SEC, they can make a great argument that, basketball has made a huge improvement this season. They went from 3 teams to 5 teams in the NCAA tournament overall, and then 3 of those 5 make it to the Elite 8. And then, let's face it, who would have taken South Carolina instead of Kentucky or Florida to be the team that makes it to the Final Four? It kind of shows that maybe the league's efforts to improve itself in men's basketball are starting to pay off.
Yeah, it's good for the SEC, and it's certainly good for all of college basketball to see this conference get more competitive on a high level in college basketball. All right, let's switch gears because it's the off-season Super Bowl in the NFL. The NFL draft is, about 5 weeks away. It's going to be in Philly this year. And, the Tennessee Titans are in a really good spot. They've got 2 picks as of now in the first round, and they don't need a quarterback. So that tells me one of 2 things. They can either stay put and get 2 really darn good football players that can help their team, or if I'm John Robinson, the GM, I keep my phone on listening to trade offers, because when you're in this position and you've got a good position in the first round and you don't need a quarterback, that really puts you in the catbird seat, doesn't it, in many ways?
Absolutely, John, and I hate to correct you, but we're actually 4 weeks away. Tomorrow, 4 weeks away.
Wow.
Tomorrow night is the first round of the NFL draft.
You are absolutely right. You can correct me anytime you want. Please do.
Absolutely. And the best part is Jon Robinson's made it very clear. When you trade the number 1 pick overall in a draft, that makes it very, very clear that you'll trade with anybody about anything, and having that number 5 pick, the Titans think that they're going to be good enough in coming years that this should be the last time they pick this high for quite a while, unless they make a trade to get back up there. Mm-hmm. So at this point, they're kind of in the catbird seat. If teams suddenly get so quarterback thirsty that they think, okay, I got to get one, and I got to get them early, then guess what? That gives them the chance to maybe slide down. They don't have a second-round pick, so got to think that anything that Jon Robinson does, that he's going to try to get into that round, especially with the round that's, a draft that is so deep in cornerbacks. And Lord knows, anyone who's watched Tennessee Titans the last couple of years, secondary is an area that they can absolutely add people and improve on. So, he can pick and choose. Do they take Jamal Adams? Do they take Malik Hooker? If there's a run on quarterbacks, does somebody like Jonathan Allen slide to him? Not a position of need, but, when there's a player there that, you have, let's face it, we knew that they needed a tackle last year. It wasn't a surprise when they got Jack Conklin. But this year, they can truly take a look at the board, and, the matter of holes that they have to fill have decreased greatly. So now they have a little bit of luxury. They can pick and choose and say, can we bolster at this area? If they're still holding that 18 spot, O.J. Howard, man, I have to admit, I'm coming around on the idea of adding him to that offense. So, wide receiver, secondary with cornerback or safety, tight end, he can pick and choose, and that puts you into a position of strength because you're going to help set the terms of what you want.
No question about it. And you know what? Thank goodness I'm not an NFL GM, because I was one of the ones last year that said, all right, you got to draft Laramie Tunsil at 1, move Lawan to right tackle, put him at left tackle. Thank goodness they didn't do that, because Tunsil showed up with the Darth Vader mask on draft day. And, you know, that's well documented. But they draft Conklin, and what happens? They keep Lawan at left tackle. Conklin makes first team All-Pro, and Lawan makes the Pro Bowl. And so, you know, they are set. They've got bookends for the next decade or so. How about some of the moves that the Titans have made this offseason? Seems like Mike Mularkey and John Robinson are really making an effort to shore up that special teams, one of their Achilles heels last year.
Well, absolutely. When you look at them getting guys who, you know, have led teams in special teams tackles and, you know, skills in that area. And Mike Mularkey's made it very clear. He understands how it affects field position. And, you know, that's an area that Mark Mariani really huge help this last season to the Titans. But he took them from a point where they were, you know, just getting somebody to catch the ball and make the right decision, and Mark did that over and over and over again. But this is giving them a chance to, you know, make better tackles, shorten what opponents are getting on their returns, and with the competition that they've brought in, giving them a chance to get a few more yards. And you know, the difference between 3 to 4 more yards on kicks and punt returns, it can be just huge in setting up your offense for good field position. So, and then you look at what they've done in the secondary. I mean, you know, this is a team that, you know, even as much as they needed help, they still let, you know, Parrish Cox go late in the season. Mm-hmm. You know, Byard, everyone thinks that he's got a bright future ahead of him, but, you know, they needed more. Rashad Johnson, you know, he was here, and he's a free agent right now, so they go out and they sign, you know, Jonathan Cyprian from the Jaguars, and then they get Logan Ryan, a cornerback from Patriots, who John Robinson knows very well. Because why? He looked at him coming out of college when he was back with that team named the New England Patriots. So it's been fun to see this team starting to put the pieces together and fill in some of the holes that they need to put. But yeah, now we're at that point where the next big move is going to be the draft, and you know, they got a lot of ammunition: 2 in the first, 3 in the third.
All right, our guest is Teresa Walker from the Associated Press. We're talking with her about a number of different things. NBA playoffs getting started very soon. Teresa, if you can, for those folks here in Nashville that may not be completely up to speed with the Memphis Grizzlies. Last I heard they were 7th in the Western Conference. Will they make the playoffs this year, and how far can they go?
Well, they definitely should be in the playoffs. Right now they are absolutely throttling the Indiana Pacers 86-63. Now the question, Marc Gasol, I think this is his 3rd game that he's missed with, I think it's left sore strain foot. Mm-hmm. You know, and it was the right foot, I think, if I've got a 50% chance of remembering that one right, that ended his season last year, right. Required surgery. But you know, you would hope that they're resting him and getting him ready for the postseason. They have beaten the San Antonio Spurs twice already. You know, David Fizdale, one of the few coaches to ever, you know, beat Greg Popovich the first time, 2 times he's played him. They have beaten the Golden State Warriors, both in Memphis and at Golden State. You know, at one point I think their record was like 5-3 against the top seeds in the West. So can they beat anyone? Sure. If it's playing the Spurs in a first-round series, you know, well, they were swept by the Spurs a year ago when Tim Duncan was making his last run of his great career.
And the Grizzlies had everybody hurt, if I recall, right? I mean, they were a mash unit going into that series, right?
Absolutely. NBA record, most players used in a season last year. I mean, you know, the couple of people who were still healthy, like Zach Randolph, was kind of looking around saying, okay, who are you again? It was that kind of a mix and match season. It was a miracle that they managed to limp into the playoffs. But that said, you know, they have, you know, this would be their 7th straight year getting into the postseason. The very first year they did, as an 8 seed, upset the Spurs, who were the 1 seed. Right. Can it be done? Absolutely. And the way that David Fizdale has got them shooting from 3, that's a weapon that they have not had, John, in their tenure in this postseason run. So, you know, could they? Sure. Are the odds probably against them? Most likely. But, you know, if Gasol's foot's feeling fine and they've got the depth, Chandler Parsons is out for the rest of this year, but Brandon Wright, you know, Brentwood's own, is, you know, healthy and is contributing. anything is possible, so it'll be interesting to see how they are going in. They've got to keep tuning up, though. A few weeks ago we were talking about how the Predators need to start winning games. Well, Grizzlies look like they should be snapping a 5-game skid tonight, but that's not the way you want to be going into April. So we'll see if they can tune up here in these last final games of the regular season.
And final question, Teresa, probably the most important one. Opening day just a few days away. Do the Cubs repeat? Will we see another World Series for the Cubbies this October?
But of course.
You are the best, Teresa. Thanks so much for jumping on tonight. All the best.
My pleasure. Thank you, John.
All right. Teresa Walker from the Associated Press, kind enough to join us. We're going to take another break, and we'll take your phone calls and do some other fun stuff. It's the Wednesday extravaganza. We always have fun here on SportsLine. Come on back after the break.